Welcome to live. Hey, another lesson for you today. All right. Now, you might have an idea that you've already brainstormed. You got the concept kind of figured out. You're like, hey, these are the characters. If you've seen the previous video to this particular series about writing, you will see that we went over how to brainstorm and just get those ideas out through train of thought and develop some notes. I have written the notes down, generalizing what we had gone over in that other video. So I recommend, if you haven't seen that video first, to go over there, check that out, and then come back and say hi. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take that idea that you might even have, where you're like, what do I do with this? How do I put it into an outline? We're going to go over how to create an outline from that idea. But more importantly, just so you understand, it is not going to be going over an outline. It's going to be how to put ideas into an outline so you can start organizing your thoughts to set up your outline. Now, as always, I'm Thomas J. Beleza, so please like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe for future content on how to be successful in your career, specifically the entertainment industry. All right, let's get started. Let's get to work. Okay, let's go over some of the notes just so we know what's happening before we get into what we need to do to create an outline from an idea. So we have a character named Mel. We decided that Mel is going to be a she. All right, so she is street smart. She's easygoing. She's from the region, the rough region of Vancouver. So we've established this is a whole new world. We're not limited by Earth's responsibility, right? So it doesn't even matter, right? Mel could be, blue for all we care. All right, the conflict in this story is to survive. As a general rule, that's not necessarily a conflict per se, but this is whatever the conflict is, it has to be to survive. So we discovered through brainstorming that we're going to make it about strong-willed survivors. The strong will survive. Basically, the wealthy and the strong are killing off the poor and middle class. It happens, right? But more importantly, they're doing it in a way because they just want to own. Basically, whoever owns the most land and the most people and the most power is the strongest, right? So Mel is trying to get to the north where it could be safer, question mark. Is it safe? Is it not safe? She must take a risk and leave. So it's dangerous to go around this region. Just to survive, you got to hide. Can you trust people, etc., etc. And she has to leave to get to a better place because she heard there's rumor going around that potentially is a better, safer place than the north. But what ends up happening is north is worse than her current region. So she decides that she must elevate her status and take over a region. Now, there's a couple things going on here before we even get started. All right. I would like to state a couple of things, okay? If you're writing this to be a television show, whatever's going on here, we're still in the good. If you're trying to do a movie, you're really talking about a multi-part movie because this north is worse than her current region should be where it ends. It should end where she gets to the new region. She's like, and it's just really terrible. And she's like, oh man, do I go back home to the region where I just escaped and now whatever the case, or do I venture into that? And then she must elevate her status and take over a region. So there's a couple things that goes on here. This could be the end of the movie, and then this could be the whole second movie. It could also be a mini series. It could be whatever you want, right? If it's a book, you could probably fit all of this in the book. I've seen books that are just massive. And if that's the case, north is worse than her current region would probably be the midpoint, the climax, where it's like this is all ascending. Well, not, we have to establish her world. We have to establish that she's street smart. We have to establish she's in a rough region. And we have to establish that she's trying to survive, okay? And then the ascending conflict would be we seeing this happen, the poor and the middle class being killed off, her trying to get to the north, or at least finding out that the north exists. And then she must risk her life to leave, right? So honestly, if I had to, in an outline, this would be Act 1. This would be Act 1, okay? Because this is just setting up the world. This is establishing the world. This would be, around here would probably be the end of Act 1, actually. And this would be the inciting incident. Okay, because strong will survive. and it leads to her finding out evidence that she has to get out of here. So this will lead into the ascending conflict, which is she must leave. So this is all Act 2, okay? And in the story, this would be the midpoint of the story, and then this would be the descending conflict from midpoint into the story. And then basically, how do we want to end it? What do we want Act 3 to be? Does she actually accomplish this, or does she die? That's the question. All right. But let's talk about how to take these ideas and really figure out what we do. And we ultimately did it in 2 seconds, right? But we know an outline is justified by 3 main acts, right? We have the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, right? Act 1 is basically always to establish the world. It establishes the inciting incident. It has the conflict of do I or do I not? You know what? I'm going to do what I have to. And by making that choice, the whole world changes. And that becomes the ascending, or Act 2, ascending conflict to the midpoint. Midpoint happens, which is like just there's no way, there's no going back. This is what the world is. And then you have to descend from the conflict, which is the main conflict, and you're leading into ultimately Act 3 for resolve. Basically, is there a big bad? Are you? Is it an internal conflict? Whatever the case may be, we got to get there. That's a standard. Though, just for the writers out there, you know, I just did an Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, right? That's like a standard. Okay, that's standard. It's just standard. But you will find that sometimes what they do is they'll do an Act 1, right? And they'll break that up into 3 parts, right? So 1, 2, 3, and then there's an Act 2, and they break that up into 3 parts, and then there's an Act 3, and you'll see them break that into 3 parts, which we're going to go over in another video, another lesson. But I have also seen it where they have basically what they do. They go Act 1, then they have like an Act 2, and they have like an Act 3, and then they have like an Act 4, right? And then they have an Act 5 and an Act 6. Basically what that is this is the standard act, and then this would be Act 2, and then this would be Act 3. That I've seen it all different ways. But ultimately, we're going to just go over how to basically take this story or your story idea and how do we establish it into an outline so we can turn it into an outline so we can have an opportunity to develop our story. Now, this works for if you're writing a story, a novel, a film, a script, a song, anything, a poem. You can do anything with it. This is the same thing everything. So the first thing we definitely have to establish is there has to be a beginning. Now, again, the way I'm going to go over this, you don't have to do it this way. You could just be like, well, what do I want to happen? You know, you could Zack Snyder it. You could just be like, you know, it'd be cool if Aquaman is drinking alcohol and he throws it down, and then he stands on the dock and the water goes up, and then he's like, burn, and we have rock music. And you could be Zack Snyder, you'd be like, that'd be a cool shot, right? But then you got to go, how do we get there? How do we, you know what? We'll just introduce him that way. He'll be in a bar, and then he won't be in the bar, and he'll run out to, and then there's like real no narrative. Anyway, so the way I'm going to go over is just one of many variables. What I like to do is I like to establish a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Boop, 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 boop. All right. I want to basically know what's going to happen in the beginning of my story, the middle of my story, and the end of my story. That doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. This is just for me to get my brain flowing, all right? So I know that we have to establish that the world is, we have to establish that Mel is the lead. We have to introduce some of the main characters, all right? Especially in a movie, you got to do it like within the first 17 minutes, 23 minutes the most. Anyway, we got to establish he's street smart. We got to explain that Vancar is a rough region without saying Vancar is a rough region. You need to show that it's rough, and you'll understand it's rough. That's show, don't tell, right? So, you know, you could just be like Vancar, and you could do a narrative, which is cardinal sin of writing. You could have a narrative and be like, Vancar, the region, one of the roughest. Mel, our heroine, she, a street smart girl that is easygoing, even in a world where her conflict is to survive, and like that would be just like a terrible, terrible thing. There's no showing. Just show that. Show that. All right. So anyway, so these are the things we want to establish, and we also kind of want to have this little struggle here, and then we need the moment. We definitely need this moment where she finds out that hey, there's something in the north, right? So when you're thinking of your story and you're going, you know what? How do I establish the world? What is going to be the main conflict and how do I want to end it? When you're doing this, it's good to start just in the beginning and not really worry about the middle and the end right away. So for your mind, take away the middle and the end. And let's just focus on the beginning because that'll end up establishing the story, right? So something I might want to do with this story is Mel street smart. She's easygoing. Do we want to have her have friends, people she could trust? Can she not trust people? What you can do is you can establish the question of who's trustworthy, who's not trustworthy. And Mel could be somebody that's maybe an idea is Mel running around. Okay, she's running around. I guess we could do like an industrial, right? Industrial area that's crumbling. Right? So right off the bat, we know we want to start off, and again, this can and probably will change, but the establishing shot to the beginning is that she is running around the industrial area that's crumbling. Why running? Why is running? Well, we wanted to run because there's urgency. And the reason there's urgency is because it's a rough region. So we've already established, imagine that's the first shot. And again, when you're writing your story, you take your notes that you brainstorm and you have to start figuring out, well, how do I want to see that? And it's better to see it out first than it is to start writing. If you work on your outline first, you will get to a point where you become overwhelmed. You're like, oh, does this fit? Does this fit? But what we're doing is we're just establishing beats. And from that beat within the outline, you could actually jot out the scenes. And then you could take a scene like this. If I was going to take this into an outline, and this was like scene 1, right? So I would be like scene 1, right? And I would want to know what my beats are. You know, does she meet someone? Does she not meet somebody? And I would establish that. So running meets whatever. Christine. Okay. And I just keep doing that. And those are my beats to the scene. And then when I'm writing my story, I literally just look at my outline. And then I would add information to this though. Like I would data out what is the running, what is she running from? Is she running from? Is she just running? Things like that. But that's going to be going over the outline structure will be in another video. This one is just how to kind of work out the ideas that you have, that you brainstormed, and to put them into position. So Mel running around industrial area that's crumbling. We want to know that the region is rough, so we've already established that. It just through action, not telling, just visually, that's an interesting visual. The conflict to survive. So there's something, right? So maybe Mel sees an opportunity for food. All right, she sees an opportunity for food, and we're basically what's happening is she's going to jump at it because it looks like it's an easy food opportunity. So opportunity for food and appears easy. Okay. However, because she's street smart, this is her first chance where in this situation she believes it is a trap, right? Oh, now we're doing it. Now we got stuff happening. So Mel, she sees an opportunity for food and appears easy. She believes it is a trap, but we can't have her say, hey, that's a trap, right? What we're going to have her do is question through action. Okay, basically she hesitant. She sees the food. She then, like she predators it, where she's going down and kill me, you son of a bitch, do it, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger screaming, and the predator's like, I see these little stabby things, these little spikes in the wood. I'm not that dumb. You have it do a moment like that, and you're establishing that she's street smart, right? But she's not really thrown off by it, right? But the funny part is, this is the funny part. So we get the easy going thing, right? We could have it that it's a friend who set the general trap. It's just a friend who set the general trap. The friend doesn't know it's her, right? They have no idea, right, about each other. All right, but we don't let the audience know that. In the story, we know that it's a trap. She believes it's a trap. She questions through action. So she's like double checking and guessing herself. We could say that she springs the trap. Okay, boom, right? And then the friend comes out, or the friends, and they're like, we got you, right? And then they realize they didn't get her. But she sees that, right? And then she sees where they're coming from. And then she's like, oh, wait, is that you, Christine? Right? Is that you, Christine? Mel? All right. There you go. Now the names are actually in the thing. It makes sense. She's like, oh. But we could also have Mel about to do something like she springs a trap. They run out. Mel goes in. Maybe Mel is like, hey, I'm gonna do, and it's like, oh wait, Christine, is that you, Christine? She's like, Mel, right? What are you doing in this area? Food. Hungry. Feed me. They have an idea. They're like, oh my god, you want some food? We got some food for you. There you go. So you now establish she does have people that she's friends with, but she's also a loner. And in that moment, we established a lot. We established it's rough. We established it is a survival of the fittest. It's a very hunter-like kind of environment. And that's our beginning, okay? Now, let me get a little drink. So this is how you basically establish your beginning, just from this concept. These are the notes we wrote, and they make sense. Just by establishing the notes and understanding them, what they are in the brainstorming session, they basically tell the story. And we took the story and we knew we had to set up these scenes. And all these scenes, this whole scene, right? This is more like 3 scenes or 4 scenes for the first act. You're establishing all this. You're establishing she's street smart. She's easygoing. When she's like, is that you, Christine? Like, not like, oh my God, Christine. And she's just like, is that you, Christine? Like, it's very casual conversation. Christine's like, oh yeah, that's me, Mel, and they're like, oh my God, we're hungry, right? And then I just really wish that if somebody did do this movie, that's how the acting was. Oh my God, it'd be so bad. Okay, I would love it though. So there you go. And then, this whole thing where Mel sets off the trap and stuff like that, you're establishing how smart she is. She might not be like John Wick smart, or like, Iron Man smart, or even whatever, but she's smart. She gets it. She sees things that other people may not be seeing. We're also finding out that the region is rough. Why? Because she just wants food, and she sees food, and she's willing to set a trap off and stuff like that. But now we know that this is a good setting scene, right? But we have to lead to an inciting incident. And since we know that the inciting incident is that she has to find out that there's a potential that the North is safer, right? We have to get there. So when you're working on your story, and you're plotting this out, just know this would be basically, we're setting the world. We are setting, this is literally setting the world, okay? So in story, you have to establish the world. Establish the world. That's it. Okay? Now, if you're writing this as like a TV series or whatever, you could establish the world through the entire show, but you have to establish her real world, Mel's in this world, or your story. You have to establish their real world prior to the conflict change, the inciting incident, because then the world they knew changes. And if you're going to look at like a television show, let's look at Breaking Bad, okay? Breaking Bad, they establish in the first episode, ultimately, that he's a teacher, he hates his life, but he won a Nobel Prize, so he's smart, right? This is all just showing like, oh, he has the Nobel Prize, right? And then, he has a boring wife and family, but he loves them, and everyone pushes on him. Not only is he like the teacher, so he's in command at school, but then he works a car wash job, and then kids from that school go to get their cars washed, and now he's like he works for them now, and he's down there scrubbing the floor, the tires, and he's just like, this is horrible. And then what happens? You have cancer, you have lung cancer, and he's just like, oh God, my life is just terrible. And that's his world, right? He's not even the hero in his family. Why? Because his son looks at his uncle as the hero, because his Uncle Hank, he's a DEA agent, and he does all these great things. So they establish that world, and then what happens ultimately, if you haven't seen the show, spoiler alert, he goes on basically a drug bust with Hank, and he sees somebody that he used to teach as a kid, which is Jesse Pinkman, bitch, right? That guy. So with that, he gets the idea. He's like, And Hank tells him how much money they make, and he's like, well, I'm gonna die, but I want my family to be taken care of, quote unquote, right? So he finds Pinkman, and he makes the choice. The inciting incident is when he gives the money to Pinkman, and then the moment they take that money, he thinks this is gonna be easy. I'll just do the chemistry. I'll just set up everything in the truck, the RV. And that's the inciting incident, right? Like he's like, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be easy, but something crazy happens, right? He has pushback because he almost gets killed. The people come, they like try to take who's your cook, Jesse? Take me to your cook. They take it to, and then the two guys, right? And that leads to the next level. So we establish a new world. So in episode 2, there's a new world. His new world is he stepped into this world. He killed one person died because he threw the poison down, and now he has this prisoner. And that whole episode is like, do I or do I not kill this person? So then he chooses to kill that person because he has to. There's an inciting incident for that, and the inciting incident is the broken plate. You see, like every aspect of every story, and then inner stories have these things. And when you're plotting out your story, you can establish these things over and over and over again. But ultimately, you have to allow the audience to see your character or characters in the world they exist in before the conflict changes their lives. If think of your stories when you're setting up your outline. By the way, this isn't showing you how an outline works. This is just showing, let's establish the beginning. Then you got to establish the middle, things like that. When you're establishing your story, you have to say to yourself, look, if somebody saw my life where let's say your life is you wake up, you take a shower, you eat breakfast, you get ready, you go to work. You do your job, you go to lunch, you come back to the job, you finish the job, you stop on your way home to like get maybe some pizza. You bring the pizza to your house, everyone sits down and eat the pizza, right? And then you go to bed and you repeat. That is a real world. Nothing has happened to incite change to that world. Because the next day, if you look at your life, every day you have a very consistent world, right? You might be someone that before you go to work, on your way, you buy Starbucks. That's consistent, right? That's how private investigators and people who are watching you go, oh, we know how to find them because every Tuesday they do this. Every Wednesday, in shows when they're like, oh, well, do you know what their schedule is? Yeah, they pick up the kids at this time and they do that. because we have a consistent world. And in storytelling, you're showing that consistent world fairly quick. It's only going to be 25% of your story, because the midpoint, act 2 is usually like 50%, and then act 1 and 3 are both 25, right? You can wiggle that if you want, but so think of your life. Imagine every day that's your life. You get up, you eat, you take a shower, you go to work, you go on lunch, you come back, and then you go pick up pizza, you bring it home, you eat it, you watch some TV, you go to sleep. Every day, right? Boom, 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 boom. Every day, next day, next day, next day. And then what happens is you're driving your car and you get into a car accident. The car accident is an inciting incident. Why? Because your entire day is thrown off now. You're driving into work, you get into a car accident, now you're going to be late for work, right? Now you got to get a new car. Now you're not going to get lunch until when? Now you have to spend money that you don't, did I have money? Do I not have money? So these become conflicts, right? In storytelling, though, you could basically make the story boring. I get into a car accident, I call a cab, I get to work, I have enough money to pay for the car to get fixed. I can afford to take an Uber or a cab. My life is not interrupted. But in storytelling, your job is to put them into corners. Your job is to push at your characters so in ways that they don't have the solution like that their solution needs to be either A, figured out through action, right? So Mel discovered that there was a trap before the trap was set. She was able to set the trap off and not get caught by it and get them to come out and figure out who's there. So that was the conflict. She's hungry, she's trying to survive, but she realizes the trap. We could have established that she got into that trap, but this is the real world. This is not, we're not trying to set up an inciting incident. So the real world is she's not going to fall for a stupid little trap. She's not going to fall for something that common in her world. It's common in her real world. So writing is about saying, how do we take away what is common and add what is extraordinary or difficult? Or that's why the hero's journey is pretty simple. It's like a 15 to 18-year-old person, and they find out they're actually the royalty, or they're Harry Potter. You are the child that killed the wise one who shall not be spoken. The hero's journey is pretty simple. You toss them into the situation. I usually consider that a very passive storytelling. Like the character's passive, meaning like the story dictates their motion instead of them dictating motion. If they dictate motion, they're an active character and not a passive character. In this situation, Mel would be an active character because we establish in the real world, she hates this life. She hates how rough it is. And once she finds out that there is potentially a safer north, she's like, the hell with it. I got to get out of here. That's an active character. If it was passive, she would be like, I hate my life. This life sucks, but this is my life. I live in Venkar region, and there's nothing I could do. Hey, by the way, there's a safer place in the north. Yeah, but you know how difficult it would be? It's dangerous now, and I have to fight to get to another area. The passive character aspect would be she doesn't want to do it, but something happens where she's with her friends, and let's just say she's with these friends that I established over here, and the passive character would be that the friends and her get captured. Now she has no choice but to go with them, and the captured, they take them to basically, let's say, a facility. This is still passive. She's at the facility, and they're going to kill her, and the friends. And what happens is her friends are like, we got to go. And she's like, no, I mean, what are we going to do? They're going to kill us if we try to leave. They're going to kill us if we stay. And that's what this life is. And her friends are like, we have a plan. And then the friends break out of the prison, and they're like, hey. And she's like, oh, all right. Well, since you did it, I'll go with you. And that's like a passive character story. But in an active character story, she would have been the one that never got caught. And if she did get caught, she'd be like, I got to get out of here, and just constantly trying to find a way out of here, right? So an active character, Pirates of the Caribbean. So William is an active character, and then so is Captain Jack Sparrow. Oh, but you've heard of me. He is an active character. Okay, and so is Swan. Elizabeth Swan is an active character. Anyway, all right. So when you're working on creating an outline from your ideas, you take your brainstorming story and you have to establish, like we did here, a beginning and just set up the tone. It is the world you live in. And just like I said, you have your mundane life. No offense to anyone who even has an exciting life, but even if your exciting life is the same thing every day, it's the same thing every day. And you have to think of what can disrupt that. And once it gets disrupted, what can't I do that I have to figure out to do? Or I need to establish a new skill set or opportunity. Sometimes we call that a MacGuffin. Like, hey, we need the sword of Flappy Flap to destroy this wizard who took our family. So now, what's the story? They got the rising conflict to the middle point is they got to go get the sword. They get the sword. There's a huge conflict. They almost die, but they get the sword. And now it's this descending conflict. They're taking the sword and they're going to another aspect, and they're gonna fight the wizard. That's a MacGuffin, right? But anyway, so think about how can you show the world that they live in without major conflict. What would disrupt your character or character's world? And that becomes the middle. The middle, okay? The middle is all of that disruption, okay? The inciting incident would lead them to the middle. It would be the car crash. It would be your family, your friends and family were taken. In Taken, the movie, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. You're looking for ransom. I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have is a very particular set of skills that I have acquired over a very long career, skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you and I will kill you. That's literally the inciting incident. That would go right here. It's the will I or won't I. If you don't let my daughter go, I'm coming after you. If you let my daughter go, it's done. And in that situation, the writers made it so he didn't win because he threw it at him. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I don't have money, but I do have skills that will make me a nightmare for people. I will kill you. I am capable of killing you. Easily, the other person goes, oh my God, you're skilled? All right, we'll leave your daughter alone. Come get her. Please don't hunt us down. But that's not what happened. They pushed him into a corner. They said, try me, or oh, good luck. And then they hang up the phone. They don't even say, oh, really? You think you're going to get me? Who do you think you are? I'm so-and-so. You can't beat me up, Mr. Liam Neeson. They didn't even do that. They said, good luck. And then they hang it up, right? But he used his skill set, right? He had the phone recording. He had it. He was recording the phone instantly. So you can see who the character is even before the inciting incident flows off. But that moment, that conversation is the inciting incident. It's right on the cusp. And then they go, good luck. And they hang up. And he's like, I'm happening. This is happening. I'm not hesitating. I'm coming after you. But obviously the conflict throughout Taken is pushback. So throughout the middle, the ascending conflict in Taken, all right, or in your story is hopeful. The ascending conflict to the midpoint is hopeful. There, like in Taken, he's he gets to I think they're in France. He gets to France and he instantly finds the courier, the person that leads them to the hotel, and he's like, hey, remember the guy that was like, hey, we have a party later. Is it going to just be you two girls? And they're like, yeah, right. And then that person tells the people, hey, there's going to be two girls there. Liam Neeson in the ascending conflict easily finds that person. However, what's the pushback? The writer gives a little pushback, right? The pushback is the courier dies. And Liam Neeson is running around, and now the cops are after him, and they see this, so he has to leave. So he can't even check the body, really. So the ascending is hopeful. He found the courier, but he got the pushback. The courier died. And it continues that way. And then, like, the major midpoint, believe it or not, is when he finds the guy that said, good luck, right? He finds him in that apartment. And in the apartment, the guy says something to him, and he's like, all right. And he kills everybody in that apartment. But what's he find? What's the pushback? The daughter is gone, has been sold off to sex trafficking. So now we're in the descending of the midpoint, the descending conflict. Why is it considered descending? Because it's not hopeful anymore. There's a risk. There's no turning back. And the no turning back is his daughter will either be gone forever, killed, or he will be killed. See that? In the beginning, it was hopeful. He's on his way to find her. He's finding clues. He's discovering things. And then he gets to the midpoint, and he's like, "Ah, I found you, you son of a bitch. I told you I'd find you." And then he's like, "I'm going to kill you." And he kills everybody. And then it turns out, wait, all right, my daughter's not here. She's going to die. So all the descending is, it has a sense of hopelessness, right? Like there's a lot of pushback and tragedy. You know, if you Lord of the Rings, right? So after the that's a good Lord of the Rings is really just one long story, but well, if we were going to take the 3 books, the first book is literally Act 1. It's the real world. And even though there is an inciting incident there with the ring, and like Frodo has to go, and they're like, "We'll just destroy it in Mordor," right? And you know, they have the Fellowship, and like Gandalf dies, and like this. The main conflict of that movie, in that story, would be like, "You shall not pass," right? That's the main. Now from that point on, going is descending, and what happens is in Act 3 they end up with fighting the orcs and stuff like that. But in reality, that would be, that first book is like establishing Act 1, and then Act 2 is what? It's the 2 towers. The craziness starts happening, the real craziness, and then finally they get to Mordor, and the king has to rise, and all this other stuff. That's like Act 3. So if you notice, those 3 books can act or perform as Act 1, 2, and 3, but each book themselves have Act 1, 2, and 3, and so forth and so forth. But anyway, so descending. Once you establish, how do we want to continue? So basically, we'll wrap it up in a second. But in your ascending conflict, be hopeful, but still give your character some pushback. Let them have victories. Let them win. In fact, during the ascending act, you also might want to have some fun. There has to be a moment where these characters are like, "I know what I'm going through. This is trouble, but let's have fun." And fun doesn't mean like they're playing games or anything, but it's known as playing games. That section of the story is known as, like, you know, game time. You know, you get to be playful. But what that means is that they're the ones, nothing could go wrong moment. You know, they're just like, I'm kicking butt, I'm kicking butt, I'm kicking butt, right? So if you're John Wick, he's killing everybody. But then what happens? Midpoint. He gets taken. They bring him into the church. They're gonna kill him. He's tied up. William Dafoe is the surprise sniper, and he saves John Wick. But what happens is John Wick makes a deal with the guy, the father, I think Victor, and he says, "All right, you can have my son." And he goes and kills his son, and then he's like, "All right." But what that does is it creates Act 3, where the guy's like, "I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna kill you." And he's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna kill you." So while you're doing the ascending, have some hopefulness with a little pushback, and then remember to allow your character to shine so you can establish their skill sets. And then the actual midpoint is where you can't turn back. Whatever happens at that midpoint, there is no turning back. Their old world is no longer the same, okay? For example, if you did have a mundane life of waking up, eating breakfast, going to work, and your car broke down, because your car broke down and you didn't have enough money saved, you couldn't afford a cab, so you were late to work, what do? The ascending conflict is you lose your job, right? If you are late tomorrow. So now we have to show, so you get to work because you hitch a ride, but you're late. And then you get to work and your boss goes, "Hey, if you're late again, you're fired." So now we create attention to the midpoint. So we know the midpoint is going to have to be something where they lose their job. All right. Or it could be something crazier, right? Maybe it turns out that car accident was a real car accident on purpose. Somebody actually hit him on purpose. And we established that through the ascending. And the midpoint is that we discover that somebody hit his car on purpose, not to ruin his life, not to get his job fired, but maybe they were mad at them, or they were angry, or maybe whatever. Maybe it's a hit. Maybe it's something his past coming back to us. You see how you could create the story. But the point is, the ascending has to be hopeful nonetheless. You will get fired if you're late again. So now the ascending in that situation would be them trying to figure out, how do I get a car for tomorrow? How do I do, like, can I borrow it from people? So what do? Maybe we have the character, hey, go to the neighbor, hey, listen, can you give me a ride tomorrow to work? And like just calling people up, I need a ride tomorrow. I need a ride tomorrow. Right. But as they're doing that, they discover the other thing, the actual A story, as we would call it, because it is really driving the narrative. That car accident is the narrative. And then you establish your midpoint, and it could be whatever you want. In that situation, it might be that we discover that, it's a long lost brother, and they find out, or sister, and they find out that the parents are sick, but because this guy hasn't talked to his parents in years because they're right, but it turns out his parents won the lotto, but he never cared because he didn't know, because they were strange, and the parents are dying. However, they didn't write out a will, so the money's going to go to the next in line, the next kin, and this person who is actually a brother or sister, wants the money, so they're like, I'll try to kill the brother or whatever. I'll just try to kill the other person. So now that's right. You just from a simple car accident, we just brainstorm that, and we would know that that's and the midpoint would have to establish that. The midpoint is there's money, the parents are dying. There's money, the parents are dying, and ultimately, this person has a sibling, a long lost sibling, and then the descending is basically, now I know you're out there, so I have to protect myself. I got to establish a relationship with my parents and tell them, hey, listen, write a will. There's somebody trying to kill me to get the money. So either have the money just go to anybody. And remember, the person was poor. They couldn't afford a car, couldn't rent. So this would be the victory at the end. So, the cops are trying to get involved. They can't figure out who was in the car for the accident, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all descending. There's no hope. There's a sense of hopelessness on the descending conflict. We can't figure out who was driving the car. There's no evidence. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Then we have Act 3, which is the end. So you have to establish with your characters, how do you want to resolve the story? Do you want them to lose? Do you want them to win? Do you want it to be a draw? That's very simple. By the way, victories, losses, and win and ties aren't necessarily a negative thing. Like, a loss is not a negative thing. A loss could just be, and it doesn't have to be physical. Like, they don't have to lose a fight. Like in Lethal Weapon, as great as that movie is, it literally comes down to him fighting the guy on the grass in the ring, and he beats the guy, and that's it. That's Act 3. I will fight you. We're gonna shoot a little bit, but then it's gonna come down to fisticuffs, and I'm gonna beat you, and that's Act 3. And they arrest him, and then the guy's like, no, and he goes to shoot him, and then they both together shoot. And 80s movies. But it could be internal. It could be an internal struggle or battle. The victory could be that he reestablishes a relationship with his family before they die. Maybe this character actually works for a company that has an experimental drug that can help with killing them. You know what I'm saying? Like, your Act 3 could be anything you want it to be. So think about how you want them to win, lose, or draw, how you want them to struggle. And this is what you do. You just remember, the beginning is about establishing your world. The rising conflict is a hopeful pushback to solve an issue, which was based on the inciting incident. The inciting incident was the car crash in that example. So they have to solve that problem. They have to solve the problem of, I need a car because if I don't have a car, I can't get to work, or I have to find another means because if I lose my job, I literally will not be able to survive because I am broke. I need the job. I need to find a solution, which is ascending, but it's hopeful. Some people saying yes, but then something happens, whatever the case may be. right? So maybe the first night, the guy ends up going, you know what, I'll just get up really early and I'll ride my bike to work because no one could do it. So it's hopeful because they're like, well, I have a bike and I could just get up earlier. Even though there was pushback, no one could do it. While he's riding the bike, he gets to work. What happens? Someone steals his bike while he's working. So now is another. He got to work. He didn't get fired, but the pushback is his bike is gone, and so forth and so on. Yeah. So work on understanding those beats, understanding setting up your world. How do we have a hopeful rising conflict to solve the inciting incidents issue, right? And that, like for example, in the Mel story, she finds out the inciting incident. She finds out it's safer in the north potentially. So now she has to solve that problem. So her ascending is to leave. So everything she does has to be a helpful ascending aspect to the midpoint. The midpoint should be that she could leave, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. The midpoint could just be that she's heading there to leave, but something comes up, and what was it? The north is actually worse than her current region. So that's the midpoint. Oh my God, I got here. There's no turning back. I either can keep going or I could go back through. And because trying to leave to the north, I established all this negativity. People know who I am. I created chaos. People are hunting me specifically now because I used people because I was like, I'm never coming back. I'm going to a safer place. So I used people. And now if I go back, it's actually going to be worse for me in this region, at least in this terrible region in the north. I don't have a reputation. No one knows who I am. I at least have an opportunity to rebuild myself. So that's the point, is now the descending is not hopeful because, yeah, she's not known, but she has to rebuild her reputation and figure out what this new region's about. And that would be the descending. And then Act 3 could literally be that it ends with her going, you know what? It's a tie. So maybe she lost and she's like, I can't establish a reputation here. But they didn't beat me. All right, so it's a tie. They didn't beat me, but I didn't win. I just know that I have to try to figure out how to establish and elevate my status and maybe take over a smaller area of a region so I can bring peace to my life. And that might lead to the next story. But in that situation, Act 3, it was a tie. A tie as in the region didn't beat her, but she didn't beat the region. She's in a place where she has to figure out what to do because she's just basically escaped one world where she had the mundane life in the crazy world, but because she destroyed that world trying to leave, she entered a new world where she basically reestablished herself in a new world that's worse. But she's like, I can't keep doing this. I can't just keep surviving. I need to do something more. And that's how Act 3 would end. Anyway, all right. So this was a longer episode, but I love doing it. I love all this craft and stuff like that. In the next episode for this series, we're actually going to go over some more stuff that has to focus on the acts. Okay. I hope this video was very helpful. Please like, comment, and share. And subscribe for future content on how to be successful in your career, specifically in the entertainment industry, learning everything from networking, marketing, to practicing your craft, how to manage your time, money, and people, and do what you have to do. Anyway, if you have comments, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. Other than that, until next time, have a great day. Be good. Stay healthy. Bye.